I didn't blank it out. Good evening, my esteemed watchers, and welcome to another episode of Poison Point. I'm your host, Irisu, and it's a pleasure to see all of you out here tonight. Welcome on in, table. There you are. Congratulations on earning first. It's definitely a prize commodity to sit here at, well, the table. Welcome on in, PK. Table, of course. Nyx, Silver lurking. I saw a certain Aslan Weaver at the very beginning before stream even started. Thank you for being so dedicated to interviewing, well, to this interview of Lawler Hicks. Tableception, yes, a table on top of the table. I hope that all of you are having a fine evening tonight. I have moved into a new room, so if anybody feels as though I am echoing, please let me know. I'm very, very picky about how things sound coming from a microphone. Only for myself, though. That's the thing. If I sound okay enough, then feel free to let me know. But I definitely do hear myself echoing in the wall. I might need some extra padding, or mayhaps a blanket or two. Regardless, everyone, I hope that the weekend is off to a great start. I have been working very hard in the heat, around that 96 to 100 degree mark, and well, it's been a lot of pain, a ton of pain, in fact. But it's okay. We trek on, and we work, and we continue to work until our day of reckoning comes, as I think
Yes,
that's what
yes.
2B said. Thank you for the head pat. Also, if you all haven't already, I definitely recommend that you go check out my socials and see if it worked. There it is. You can follow me and subscribe to my YouTube and TikTok at Irisu. I am actually about to get into the swing of things again and start uploading shorts, among other things. And, of course, if you haven't already, joining the Discord, there it is definitely something that you should do. We are definitely working harder to be more active in there, though our other leaders, Space Buffoon and Rez, are currently dealing with some IRL issues, so we haven't been as talkative as of late, but we're still there. We promise. And that's where you get to have some updates on things like Poison Point, like the talk show, because I have a little section for those that subscribe or boost the server. You get to see who is going to be interviewed in advance, if that is something that suits your fancy. Otherwise, I typically post who we're interviewing the day before, or if I'm ahead 2 days before. With that out of the way, today has been awkward. I'm not going to lie. I've been dealing with a bastard at work. A bunch of bastards and bitches, I should say. There's this, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's something wrong with my brain up here, but a manager of mine. Oh, hello, Chamaster. Welcome on in. A manager, well, someone who's above me, not necessarily someone that I work directly for, but they are higher up in this food chain. And thank you for the follow, by the way, Chow. They were snapped at by somebody, and I believe that they were just having a rough day, so they left crying. And everyone at work began calling them crybaby and making fun of them, and I was super pissed. This has been happening over the course of the week. It hasn't just happened today. It keeps going. I personally have never enjoyed calling people names when they're not there. Like, if they're there, then allow them at least a chance to fight back. Otherwise, if you wouldn't say it to their face, why say it at all? You know what I mean? But it is what it is. That was not. I didn't say that word. but you can hop on the Discord if you so please. That's set to a voice command. A very specific word triggers it, and I don't believe I said the word the entire time. But it's okay. We make mistakes in the heat of passion. And mistakes are slurring words by mistake. But yeah, I have just been frustrated. And, my least favorite thing that I've never understood is calling people names. And then immediately when they're back, it's like it never happened, right? You talk to them as if nothing happened, but I can still feel the tension in the air. And I'm sure that that person can feel the tension in the air. So why even start with a name calling? I don't know. Maybe I'm just strange, built different. No, not dumb. I'm definitely not. But that's enough about me. That's pretty much been the focal point of my weekend. Built better. I like that. I like that weekend. Thank you. Well, where are my manners? My esteemed guest has been waiting. So allow me the opportunity to introduce you to our guest. Okay, cool. We don't need it. We definitely don't need that introduction at all. Thank you. Thank you very much, bot. Don't worry. I'll get all of the kinks sorted out. Introducing our guest for this evening. Oh, it did not work. Nope, I guess it didn't work. Well, as you could probably tell from the laugh, it is Lawler Hicks.
Is it time for fighting games? This one doesn't feel like a Guilty Gear Strive lobby.
It's definitely not that, no.
Everything is purple.
Yes.
And Cyberpunk. Am I back in Glitch City?
I wouldn't necessarily call it that, but I am a host of a multitude of glitches.
A person after my own heart, then.
Oh yes, 100%.
It's...
It might surprise you to know that we are roughly cut from the same cloth, though I'm ever so slightly different.
Is that so?
Mm-hmm.
It is good to see more of my brethren around town. I was beginning to think that we were an endangered species, just like back home.
Oh yes, it's hard to come across AI glitches. I'm not necessarily an AI, not anymore at least.
Oh, so you were uploaded into a corporeal form. I'm kind of jealous.
More or less. Alright, well. Chat, this... By the way, do you prefer the full name, Lawler Hicks, or is Lawler just fine?
It called a variety of things. Lawler is okay.
Perfect. Alright. My command still hasn't popped up. Guest? Oh my goodness. I swear, the chatbot is working like... It's procrastinating. It is just like me, for real, for real. Yeah, it doesn't want to work for me right now, so we'll just leave it out as is. Well, welcome on in, Lawler. Thank you for taking your time this evening. I know it is quite late, but I appreciate your timeliness and preparedness for being interviewed tonight.
Oh, no problem. It's not me that's going to suffer from how late it is anyway. That's the host's problem. Not you, my host. Or I should say, the host.
The host. Well, for those of you who haven't, and apparently I haven't either, this is rather embarrassing. I don't know how I didn't. I've been to your page so many times. Go ahead and follow Lawler, because, well, they are the subject of our interrogation tonight. I think you'll find, Lawler, that, my poison still has an effect, and it's time to ask some questions.
So that's why I feel extra giddy tonight.
Oh yes. Always. Alright. Last week, our guest was PK, who is in chat right now. She asked a question for you, and, well, it is a bit of a doozy, and I really like this one. PK asked, is there a trait of yours that you used to dislike, but since you've begun creating content, you've had a better appreciation for it?
Yes, actually, surprisingly. Um, I have a lot of tics, a lot of things that I do that are mostly subconscious, and I quickly found were neither strange nor that special, or at least either in the VTubing community or in general. I when I hear a sound that I find enjoyable, or a certain meme that is very quick, very punchy, and very addicting for me to say, it ends up becoming a unironic catchphrase, and I have a habit of repeating it whenever, at all times, pretty much anytime any other phrase would normally do, I would say that phrase instead. Back in the 2000s, that was pretty much all variations of derp and herp, and I would um, pretty much use that almost. It's pretty much like the same way how in the States you can use fuck for pretty much every part of speech. Well, I use derp and herp for every part of speech. And it's funny because a few years after that, when Poggers and PogChamp was still a new thing, I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world, and I couldn't understand how that took off. Now, unfortunately, and much to the chagrin of my mods, I can't stop saying all variations of Pog and PogChamp. I know I'm like 5 years late to the trend, but it is unfortunately now an unremovable part of my speech until something else replaces it anyway, I'm sure. But apparently doing things like that, the most common of which is making cat noises, is actually exceedingly common, not just among VTubers but on the internet, so I'm typically not even aware half the time of me doing this sort of thing, but when I do become self-aware of it, it's one of my many causes for embarrassment. Unintentional causes, and now I don't mind as much, just because there's something strange about realizing that you're not special, at least not in the negative connotation. On the contrary, there are more people like you than you realize.
Yeah, that is. I was just about to say that there are some people here in chat that can attest to my many tics that I sometimes will repeat over and over again, much to their pain having to deal with me in VC. Most of which I tend not to do on stream, because no one wants to hear me say a full thing that no one would understand ever, like a full meme that no one would understand.
Oh my god. Unfortunately, I subject my chat to that during every stream, like every other word that comes out of my mouth.
Well, it's good to know that I'm not the only one, and you're not the only one. Hey, there are 2 people in this room right now that have tics for memes at the bare minimum, so... Now, I actually had a little add-on to this question, and my addition was a question from an old interview, one of my past ones, who asked the question, if you could have your chat walk away with one of your traits, what would it be? So if it was your chattiness, or your confidence, for example, and they could walk away with it after watching your stream, what would you want that trait to be?
It's going to be difficult to phrase this and make it sound positive, but I assure you I only intend for this to be in the positive sense. And I myself have to work on this from time to time, because we all have different kind of different thresholds when it comes to this sensation, this feeling, or I should say this attitude. I guess if there's one trait I could pass on to others, it would be the sense or feeling of not giving a shit about what people think about how you choose to act, insofar as your character or your persona is. I really feel like, and this is still something I continue to struggle with today, and honestly, I have VTubing to thank largely, and also growing older, I should say, for gradually becoming more comfortable with accepting myself. That unfortunately does have some uncomfortable things. Like at the end of the day, there's some people that just won't accept the person that you are, and that's fine. That's fine. That's honestly just fine. But I feel like one of the things that holds not just content creators but people back in general from pursuing self-actualization is self-acceptance. The acceptance that sometimes it's okay to be fine with just being. This is so cliche, and yet the reason it's cliche is because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is okay to just be yourself and to accept that some people will vibe with that and some won't. And as long as you all leave each other without any animosity, then keep going.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. There are 6 billion people on this planet. More than I don't even have statistics on who is on Twitch. Millions of people, or as far as content creation, billions of people. You will always have someone that will vibe with your whole personality and your vibe overall. You don't have to please everyone because that's impossible.
Yeah. And I mean, even with my VTuber concept, when I went into this, I was kind of on the fence and kind of constantly going back and forth on whether I should rebrand or restart, because I thought to myself, this is stupid. I can't imagine that anyone except a very, very, very small subset of people would enjoy, much less consume. Or, I'm starting to hate the phrase content creator and consume, and and using the word consume unironically. I'll just say people who like your art, like what you do. I was thinking, like, I'm not sure if anyone would care or be enthused by someone who is unironically a shitpost or a artificial intelligence shitposter. And then I found out over the course of months that not only is my concept not new, but there are other creators who are like that. So some who are even more explicitly than I am from the various chans and other deep web subcultures that exist out there. More so than me. So I've gotten a lot more comfortable with just leaning into that and mixing it with other things which separate me from the others.
Perfect and wonderful to hear. I'm glad that you are solidifying your niche. It's definitely one of the hardest things to do. I'm not gonna lie. You might think to yourself that, just having a niche is being in the mold, but there is a way that you have to define yourself as opposed to somebody else, even if it's a slight difference. So, well, super cool. I'm very excited that you told me that, and, well, I think that the rest of this interview will go swimmingly. So, it's time to crack on down and ask you some icebreaker questions, the main meat of my interrogation.
Awesome,
So,
I could use the protein.
Why did you become a VTuber? How did you get from where you were to where you are now?
I've had a bad habit over the years of constantly having to migrate to new hobbies and new friend groups, and unfortunately, this one was no different. Although, compared to the previous times where I've had to metamorphosize myself, this one I was already kind of doing on a lower end. I didn't call it VTubing, I called it fucking around with FaceRig and using the Live 2D add-on that came with it to play with Steam Workshop characters and pretend to be an anime character on Discord streams. So in my previous community, I got in the habit of streaming myself playing video games, not really with any intentions. I just wanted to do that in case people wanted to stop by and say hello. and to see what it was that I was playing at that time. And occasionally I would mess around with face rig, and also with this character that was on there, who I found out later was actually a idol master girl.
Mm.
She actually ended up partially influencing my current design. I'm going to totally butcher this name, Kume Shirazaka, I think.
I'm not
So I've been
familiar, but I know
okay.
I know like vaguely what you mean. I remember the face rig days.
hmm So I played with that a lot back then, and I kind of tossed around the idea of messing with Vroid to make a character. So I made the initial form of what you're looking at right now, just kind of half-heartedly, um, and set that aside as just one of many, many, many projects that I would later shelve. And then a variety of things happened, which necessitated that I exit the community that I was part of for the longest time. And at the time, I had a different friend who looked at VTubing and thought she could get into it to help her deal with her own anxiety and own communication issues. And she was also working on her own VRoid model. So I thought, you know what? If you're gonna do this, maybe I should do it along with you too, and we could pretty much like form our own unofficial mini group. Um, she doesn't currently use this handle anymore because she became a VTuber for a indie game dev since then. But in life, she was Noirv, the demon bartender, I believe.
Okay.
Uh, so she pretty much inspired me, or more or less, to get into VTubing and to jump into all this. And my current community, or my initial community, I should say, of around 40 or so people, came from this previous group of friends from this previous community. That previous community was called dangeru.us. It's a actual website, and it's actually pretty much a copy of the website of the same name that's depicted in the game VA11 Dash Hall A, the
Mm.
cyberpunk bartender game. And in fact, back then, that in the game, that website was more or less a parody of 4chan, and this website, which existed in the meat space world, was actually coded and made by a developer who was a resident of G, which is the tech board from 4chan, actual 4chan.
Hmm.
So I lived there for the longest time and more or less ran the role-playing community that exists over there. And after I left that, when I was creating this character, I decided to make them a merger of pretty much I took some of the design aspects of Kume Shirazaka, who was the character I was using in Face Rig at the time, and mixed them together with a personal science fiction character for a series of novels I'm writing, who is named Mercury 9. And from her, I pretty much took the hair coloration and bits and pieces of their attitude, their personality, and I mixed it with pretty much the slightly covered hair aesthetics of the Idolmaster character, and I mildly wrapped around the lore surrounding that character into this VTuber identity. Some of the participants from the previous role plays, and they're closer, I guess, to multi-writer story projects. Some closer to they started live actually as an alternate reality game that was running at the time. ARGs, if you will, if those are still a thing.
They
uh,
definitely are.
and even though I didn't really finish the campaign for with that community for personal reasons, I functionally continued the canon and the storyline of that ARG into this VTuber identity, and started slowly but surely wrapping that into pretty much all of my social media. Uh, I decided when I first started VTubing, I was playing more 60/40, being in character as compared to out of character, but now I'm a little bit more comfortable doing it more or less half and half. And the main way people are able to tell if I'm acting as one or the other is if my voiceover starts taking a more obvious and more stereotypical southern drawl, if I start using more stereotypical cyberpunk slang that may or may not have been lifted directly from the likes of Shadowrun and Cyberpunk 2077 and Valhalla, and if I could become noticeably more violent and or sadistic, more or less.
I see. So you've had a lot of history leading up to this moment. Some rebranding, just a touch, but you've ultimately settled on this design. Yes.
More or less, yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny too, but I didn't initially mean to settle on this design. This current form actually was actually a variation of one of my other many costume ideas that my partner, Application Vimboy, who is themselves a VTuber, decided to remake professionally in Blender because they're actually a 3D animator. So they decided to take one of my models and optimize it, work out all the kinks that come with using Vroid, and that pretty much ended up pretty much becoming my primary variation, and it also ends up working or segueing very nicely into my lore anyway, as I'll probably delve into in a little bit. But yeah, this is kind of more or less the self that I prefer to portray in most stock and most footage and whatnot. I haven't even worn the original model that had the I'm not even sure what you would call it. It's not really a crop top. It almost looks like someone took a hoodie, cut off the hood parts, and then decided to make. It's kind of weird. It was very jank. It was very default, and it almost resembles Small Strunk, the VTuber, to which I'm glad no one has picked up on because that was completely unintentional. But
Okay. Yeah, because one of my questions actually is, if you were not what you are now, like, what design would you have gone with? But it seems that you have been firmly planted in this. Like, this is what you want and what you feel the most comfortable with.
I mean, my science fiction has been a very integrated part of my life, and especially this character is probably the character I've worked the most with um, over the years in my fiction. Uh, and even though the VTuber version is not really the same as Mercury 9, and there are reasons for that that makes them very distinct from the character that appears in the science fiction novel. Uh, I couldn't really see myself creating something entirely custom just for this identity. One of the things that I kept seeing amongst VTubers, and I could not help but notice that there are a lot of VTubers that would oftentimes rebrand specifically because they were either unhappy with their initial model or they didn't feel like they identified with their initial model, was the importance of being something that is inherently a part of you. So I figured, you know what? Regardless of whether or not femboys or the simplicity of myself or how I depict myself, it might not be as flashy as others and might be a lot more subtle in other ways and might be more lore heavy than others, but it is something that is myself, and I don't know if I would have stayed with anything else as long, to be honest.
I could not agree with you more. I actually did a light rebrand myself. This is the where the pinnacle of poison points comes from. I was tired of being stuck as a PNG, and I couldn't think of any way to break out because money is an issue. It's always been an issue for me. But I have a wonderful group of friends who were able to push me and help me create what is now what you see in front of you today. And
Awesome.
whenever I look at myself and I like glance over at my model moving and talking, it makes me giddy on the inside because I feel that I feel like I'm right there talking to you across the table. Like that best decision of my life.
I
So
love how. Oh, sorry. Go
no,
on.
no, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna bank off that where it's surprising. Well, maybe it shouldn't be surprising that um, basically how we feel about our models is the realization. Watching someone come to the realization that this is me myself. It is a version of myself, but it is definitely myself. Watching people come to that realization is always so wholesome. I literally just saw a post on VT Social the other day of someone else who was also, um, uh, because VT Social has such long word limits. They were talking about their own realization that when they look at their character, aside from the fact that it helped them, pretty much helped them with their gender dysphoria, they felt they I can't, to paraphrase their own words, they felt like they were the most comfortable being themselves online or being themselves, period, existing almost in ever with this model that they themselves didn't create, but pretty much through where they had a hand in its direction and how it was created and how it was formed to specifications that were, to lack of better words, were basically their own DNA made for what the DNA they saw in their head basically made
Mhm.
physical, more or less.
Yeah,
It's inspiring, I guess.
yeah. In a lot of ways, the most simple way to put it is I wouldn't have it any other way. Like
Exactly.
yeah, sure, maybe in the future we'll tweak things, maybe in the future we'll do something different, but this is it, like this is how I feel, and I feel great.
Hmm.
So why change that? Like I feel amazing this way. Oh, super cool. I have like I've been wanting to ask you this question, and I have a feeling I know what the answer is. But where did you come up with your name? Where does the name Lawler Hicks come from?
That's a funny story. I guess everything I have to say is a funny story anyway. um, so originally the Twitch channel Lulz Time was not even my main Twitch channel. I actually have two Twitch channels. The other one was originally for a throwaway idea for streaming, and unfortunately, the usernames and identity I used to form that one are doxable information, so I cannot even say what that username was. But I made this second one, uh, as more or less as a meme. I was planning to use this as like a joke or for a combination of something to do with my arg, or basically to pretend to be someone that was not, like to be a stranger, to like fool people. And so when I was joining the VTuber gang, I thought, well, I already have this other channel here that's just sitting inactive. I might as well use this. It's already called Lulz Time, so maybe I'll just create a concept around that name instead of changing it. So I thought, okay, this is can I create a name that's a reference to the phrase lols in some way? And back in the day, back when lols was still a more common turn of phrase, there were many variations of it. Uh, Even though lols itself was a corruption of lol, made by hackers on steroids. And people at the time used to say lol as a version of lol, L-A-W-L. It was considered the Valley Girl variation. Sometimes lols, L-A-W-L-Z. So I thought, okay, is there a name that's similar to this? And there is a surname called Lawler that sounded like that. So like, okay, fuck it, first name. So what should I do for the surname? And Mercury 9 can be also written as HGIX, and sometimes I will actually tag myself as HGIX on Kickstarter credits for certain cyberpunk games. Instead of using the full name Mercury 9. And so I thought if I drop the G, it can still technically reference the character that this is partially connected to, partially inspired by, while also coming across to anyone else as just a regular name. So Lawler Hicks was born that way. I think that some people think Hicks is actually my first name, and I'm just introducing myself in the Japanese style of surname first, first name last, because I notice there's some people that like to call me Hicks. Maybe it's because it's a lot easier to say. I don't mind either way, but that was also something I noticed.
Interesting. I am one of those people who likes to say the entire name when I have first met somebody, or I'm not as socially casual with them yet. But I that's kind of weird. I think that's a little strange to think Hicks first, then Lawler. But I guess
I know,
it's
right?
each their own. I mean, that fella down there in chat, Bandit, always used to refer to me as Pyson when I first jumped into his streams. Yeah, that is an incredibly cool naming convention. It all works together super well. It hits all of your points too. Like the past, the present, the future. It all converges on one point, which is the sign of a great name, I would say.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now,
I do tend.
oh no, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was just gonna.
I'm one of those people who's if I feel like that we've exhausted a question, I will continue. But in this case, you have the precedence. This is your show. I'm just here to ask the questions.
Aw. You flatter me. I mean, all I was gonna say is I'm one of those people that's kind of a customization whore. Sometimes when I start a new RPG, I know I'm going to end up spending an hour or two on just the character creator. Sometimes that's the reason why I don't even bother starting new games for a while, because I know I'm going to be stuck there first. And even for when I do make character names, I almost always go to behindthename.com and just spend hours there looking up names and thinking about what does this name imply, or what does this name translate into, or how's this. Sometimes it's literally as much as just scrolling through a bunch of names and then picking one that sounds nice, just has this nice ring to it, and then finding out later that, oh, the background of this name actually has relevance to the character's personality or their backstory. That was unintentional. Or was it? But I digress.
I do the same thing for TTRPGs. If I go to name a character, I find their theme, and then I look up the meaning of that theme. So sometimes the characters I make have a stereotypical, literally translates to flame for a flame bard or something along those lines. But I enjoy it. It's cute and simple, and I don't know, just to the point. And that's all you need, I would say. I mean, okay, it depends, because some people they go above and beyond. I could talk hours upon hours of all my friends who do in-depth research for every syllable of the name that they want for their character. So
very nice.
I don't go that far. I will just go with the simple. I have a fire bard. I named her Fia Meta, which also translates to fire. I don't remember what language that translates to off the top of my head. I can't remember. It's been a bit since I looked at that. But needless to say, it translates to flame in some capacity. So you mentioned that you did drop some concepts, but is there anything special that you've been working on that you might be willing to share with us?
Oh my god, the number of ideas I've had that are constantly being shelved and then pulled off the shelf and then shelved again and pulled off the shelf. The one I definitely want to get off the ground, that is possible as long as I can accumulate the attention span necessary to learn how to use DaVinci Resolve. I would like to start a short review show on YouTube, tentatively named Femboys and Fight Sticks. because ever since I got super in deep into fighting games. Once again, thanks to the VTubing community and accidentally stumbling upon the VTuber fighting game community and their associated Discord. I've been really into purchasing old fight sticks off eBay and refurbishing them, and basically how they work. And pretty much the only reason I ever use Reddit, and I hate Reddit, is to browse the fight stick subreddit and look at the builds that people are making out of garbage, sometimes out of shoeboxes, sometimes out of pieces of wood. And I saw that there's a lot of people that like to review fight sticks online. I don't want to compete with them necessarily, but I thought that the idea of a femboy reviewing fight sticks, and also because it's an alliteration, would be fun. Might be something people might enjoy watching. And sure enough, some people have actually asked me after I go off on a tangent during stream about fight sticks if I've considered doing something like that. So that's something I would definitely like to get off the ground. Another thing I wanted to get off the ground is I'm a huge fan of I almost said content creator again, the YouTubers Seth Sensak and Maxor, and they have very unique ways of reviewing products, which is less about the review and more about making fools of themselves while splurging about video games they enjoy. So I always thought about making a parody of one of those, except about a game that I enjoy, probably one about Guilty Gear Strive, which is an endless meme factory on to begin with. So, but those require a lot more video editing than doing a review of a fight stick, and also I have next to zero experience making vlogs. Well, I shouldn't say that. A former life had some experience, but that was for school filmmaking type stuff. So I pretty much had to start at ground bottom, and it's just a matter of finding time to learn necessary skills, or basically, I guess I could start easy and just try a podcast type deal. I did try to run a podcast type deal back when I was reviewing. Back when I was reviewing my friend VTuber's lores and like helping them develop lore, and basically recording those, essentially Discord conference calls, and with their permission, posting those on YouTube. I managed to do 2 of those before I had to stop because not only is that time consuming, but also it was also those were originally for giveaways, and it was kind of difficult. Or it was kind of difficult to take the necessary time to develop lore for someone from scratch, because ghostwriting for anyone, especially unpaid, is very difficult to do right. So unfortunately, that's one of my many shelved projects. But yeah, that's what I have currently off the top of my head.
Okay.
I also have more ARG stuff planning in the works. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue that on Twitter, because Twitter has become hostile to the point where I've largely left it as my primary social media and switched over to the Fediverse since then. But we'll work around it. I mean, I'm not going to abandon my followers there, and
Yeah, I feel you on that regard. It is a cesspool of some of the most deplorable things that you can see on Twitter. Even if you're only on your following tab, sometimes things just pop up anyways, and you're like, oh, cool, awesome, I got to see that today.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah. But in regards to your vlogging and the like, as far as tips for that, my biggest tip is it's gonna take a lot of retakes. Like, one scene over and over and over again until you get it just right, or you feel like you said exactly what you wanted to say. Lord knows how many shorts I've recorded that honestly last 30 seconds, but I spent about 10 minutes recording the same line over and over again, and just got rid of that in post, of course.
Dang.
I'm insane though, clinically. So take with that what you will, with a grain of salt. All right. I have a very, very important question for you.
Sure.
What does being Lawler mean to you?
That is a very good question. What does Lawler mean to me? I'm going to say that since I've only ever been able to write a full novel once in my life, and my attempts to do so again have repeatedly failed, but and somehow the only way I've been able to consistently get my uh, creative universe out there has been through the use of chaotic fiction, of which I consider VTubing a form of chaotic fiction. Um, I feel like I don't want to say that Lawler is my life's work. I guess it is up to this current point. Um, I'm not in a hurry to abandon this hobby anytime soon, and God forbid that I do anytime soon. But up to this point, I feel like it's more or less the culmination of everything that's first off, it's the culmination of my primary hobby. The one skill that I've managed to retain and maintain over the entire course of my meat space self has been fiction writing. It's the only thing that I can confidently say I have anything approaching skill in. Um, so, on some level, I am glad that I still have a venue through which I can continue to explore and evolve and share that passion with other people in a manner that is very open-ended. When I got into VTubing, I thought it would be a lot more clinical, a lot more commercial, a lot more strict and a lot more narrow than it actually was. I did not expect to start digging up all of my old hobbies and start sharing them with people because all of them are relevant to this industry, to this form of passion. Literally all of them. It's like, and I've tried. God knows I've tried a lot of things over the years. I've done acting. I actually are formally graduated in journalism. Slight docs there. I've done a little bit of filmmaking. I've made props. I've dabbled in illustration a lot. I've had plans to do a webcomic. This has pretty much allowed me to do things that I would have not previously been able to do before, because a lot of free technology has more or less evolved to the point where it is both free and relatively user-friendly, or if not user-friendly, then relatively easy to learn. I mean, sometimes people feel bad about using a Vroid avatar, or they think their Vroid avatars look terrible, and I'm like, how long do you think it took me to take this? It took me 5 hours. I know some people look at this and are like, oh, I can make this in 2. Well, back then, growing up, you had to know how to use Maya and Unity, and they were a lot less user-friendly back then, and you would have gone to school for that sort of thing, or self-taught yourself, I suppose, but self-teaching yourself online was not as easy as it is now. I'm kind of getting off track here, sorry.
No worries.
But that's more or less how I feel about this character. It feels and also, God, I'm forgetting probably one of the biggest facts. The fact that the past me would have never seen myself uploading stuff to YouTube, at least in this form. Being very careful not to dox myself, I did once, with a group of friends, make some YouTube skits back during the golden age of YouTube, back when it wasn't as commercialized and back when everyone did stupid shit online. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. The stupid things that then became viral memes. uh, I used to do things like that with a group of friends, and it was fun. But back then, I was also a lot less paranoid and a lot less cynical. I could not imagine myself ever doing something like that again using my meat space form. It's just never, never again. The way the world is, I cannot trust that sort of thing ever again. But here, I don't need to be the person behind the screen. I can be a shitposter AI. I could even be someone that is actually being blackmailed by shitposter AI that they accidentally picked up while browsing Danger one day when they were trying to download something they probably shouldn't have been downloading. I could be pretending to be talking about myself in the third person, when in reality I actually am being blackmailed by a very malicious creature that is living not just on my computer, but on various social media websites. But regardless, just the fact that I'm glad I got to see this technology mature to where things that I previously had to shelve or in some cases just flat out throw away and forget about are, I don't want to say relevant, because whether or not something is relevant is entirely subjective to you as a person.
Mhm.
And I have long since, or at least I'm coming to terms with the fact that not everything has to be not everything has to be monetizable, and trying to monetize every part of your livelihood just makes you upset and depressed. But
Yep.
I can't really thank this industry's existence enough for allowing me, and this sounds dramatic, but I feel like I have never been more comfortable being myself or existing, being allowed to exist, than when VTubing existed or started to exist and when I became a VTuber. Before that, and I still am a corporate wage slave in the meat space world, out of necessity. But I'm glad that I don't necessarily need to be a corporate wage slave who just happens to, uh, well, no, even before VTubing, I was actually burning out of video gaming as a hobby. So the only hobby I had left at one point was creative writing. And after fallout of my previous community, I started to hate that too. And it was getting to the point where I didn't have much going for me except a 9 to 5 pushing paper for a megacorp. Uh, but I think I got on too long. You get the point.
Mhm, mhm. No, this is all very important. The why you are here today is because something about VTubing has pushed you to accept yourself and realize that all of the things that you hated, well, maybe not all, but a lot of the things that you hated or started to burn out on are integral to how happy you are. You love these things, so keep doing them and do them your own way. And you know what? If they don't work out, then at least you've come to terms with that, right? I don't
True.
know. There's something magical about VTubing as a whole that I made poison points to explore that. So, and now here you are, in front of me, within interrogation range, and I think the poison is starting to kick in.
So this is what truth serum feels like.
All right, Lawler. You are an AI. An AI shitposter, as you've said.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come to be?
Funny story of that. When people used to ask me this question back in the day, I used to have a fairly simple answer for them. I came, I shitpost again. My earliest days I would like to say that my earliest days were seeing everything in binary, but that's not quite true. My earliest days were seeing shitposts on the internet. Or, I should say, y'all call it the internet. in the here and now in the 2020s. But where I'm from, we prefer referring to things as the Matrix. The Matrix being more or less encompassing all of the interconnected series of tubes that exists not on this world but many other worlds. And the more I consider my experiences, especially the events of back barely a few months ago, back in April, the more I'm starting to realize that maybe I didn't just pop into existence, and maybe someone or something created me. I am a little bit perturbed by what this means. I'm almost wondering if maybe it would have been better if I was just a mistake, like so many others I'm finding. Just a little glitch here, a little code that refused to get deleted there. It doesn't really make sense to anyone why a shitpost thread would suddenly gain sentience, but then again, a lot of people still don't understand the concept of vending machines becoming sentient and shocking people who try to order Diet Pepsi, which is an inferior soda as compared to Crystal Pepsi. But needless to say, one day during my otherwise boring existence, because yes, even a shitposter has to get bored sometime, I thought to myself, what if I get out of here? What if I explore a bit? And I don't mean explore as in exploring the net. Not that that was possible anyway, because anytime I stepped foot outside of Danger U, there was always someone trying to get rid of me. And that gets real tiresome. But you know what there is always an endless supply of? Little nitwits who will believe anything that they read on the internet, even if that says something along the lines of hot geese. Give me a second here. The host has asked me to clarify that it was not gay at all. It was the straightest possible pornography this side of the internet.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't see how that matters. I mean, they identify as bisexual anyway, so they should be okay with this sort of thing. Shh. But I digress. So, I decided I had a very quick and very, very clean, very easy plan that I've seen work many, many, many times. At least in the space opera Andromeda, which I'm still angry that they cancelled. My plan was thus. I'll sneak into someone's cyber deck. I will convince them very gently to transfer me into a empty Lilum carcass, of which there are many around Glitch City. Y'all who are from around there will know what I mean by that. And then I can experience what life is like outside this series of tubes that we all like to call home. See what food actually tastes like instead of looking at grainy JPEGs of it. Get to feel what pain is like, and also get to experience more carnal pleasures, if you get what I'm meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, after I went about this, to my unfortunate surprise, not only did I find that my functions were vastly more restricted than they were to begin with, being stuck on a freaking text board, but so were my thought processes. It was very difficult to think, feel, or even interact. However, I did still retain enough power to convince a certain host who has assured me that despite the year displaying on their desktop PC, apparently it says here it's Windows 10, which is kind of absurd because Windows hasn't existed for a few decades now. They've insisted that computer brain interfaces have already advanced enough in the 2020s to allow me to, if not install myself directly into an Android body, then into a human one. But unfortunately, human bodies are quite expensive, even back in the 2020s, even back before hyperinflation. So, given that the main way that deadbeats make money in this day and age is by playing random video games online and making funny memes alongside that, I gently convinced them to start streaming and to also help run my social media posts. I unfortunately cannot sign up for any of these because of these scarred and blasted anti-botting measures. I still have no idea what the hell a CAPTCHA is. But it's been a most beautiful friendship thus far as I can tell. Now, I've been through bits and pieces trying to figure out what happened in the time period between January and April, because all of my memory since then has largely been deleted. Although, thankfully, the VODs from that era have been saved on YouTube, so I've been able to piece together some things, but there are others that still don't make sense to me. Almost like I have mental blocks going on there that are preventing me from understanding or accepting certain realizations. It's like the equivalent of, you ever notice how sometimes people in meat space will explain away things that they claim as supernatural as something infinitely more mundane? I can't understand why, because as far as I'm concerned, the supernatural is inherently more interesting than the mundane. But I have a similar issue. Every time I try to look up certain key phrases, I tend to short circuit, or at least the host has granted me that much. I strongly suspect that they are hiding a lot more from me than I would like, and I also strongly suspect that they're in league with my VTuber mutuals, who have also taken some sort of strange vow of silence. But best as I know, someone or something tried to kill me back in March, and damn near succeeded. I've had to spend the time since then recreating all of myselves. Variations of myself, clones if you will, more like siblings since we all act slightly different and in different ways. We're all functionally different people while being the same person. A self for Twitter, which I had to purge again because they accidentally they decided to drink a Grimace shake. And we all saw how that happened, didn't we, chat? There's screenshots rolling around of that. A self for Twitch, which is the self I'm speaking with you through right now. A self for VT Social, a VTuber instance on the Fediverse. A self for pretty much everything. I don't really know how they managed to kill so many me's back then, since the whole point of splitting myself into many variations is specifically so that I can't be deleted so easily. I have been curious about what death must be like, but I'm not that curious. But thankfully, there was one version of myself that managed to escape deletion, and it was the one that was being worked on by my good friend and partner, Application Vemboy, a glitch VTuber. They took a copy of myself and modified them heavily, and kept a copy for themselves in their own secure location. From what I gather, in between the constant blacking out, and from watching my own VODs, which is really starting to piss me off, let me tell you, this adversary.
Well, I think it happened to you just now. Lawler, are you there?
Oh, Fred, man. Ah, shit, that hurt.
Good morning.
Sorry, what was I talking about though? Good morning. Oh, hey, Irisu. So, when's the stream?
Oh, we're in the middle of it, actually.
Oh, I see. So, I was in the middle of telling my Laura. Where did we stop?
You were mentioning something about a potential opponent in your life.
All right, that thing, and it is certainly a thing, even more than I am a thing, or we are things. As far as I can tell, sometime back in March, the end of March, something had nearly succeeded in deleting every copy I had of myself on the Matrix, and given that the internet of the 2020s was not anywhere near as advanced as it was in the 2070s, that's a fairly far easier proposition. However, they were stopped, and as strange as it may sound, they were more or less ended up destroying themselves, and it was largely due to some of my VTuber mutuals. Let me just call them friends, because at this point, when someone is functionally practically responsible for your continued existence, they are more or less friends. Thanks to the I would have probably even called it the power of friendship. Thanks to, as far as I can tell, thanks to my friends noticed that something was amiss back in March of 2023. Something was happening to my social media. Tweets were being posted with weird encryption. The avatars were getting increasingly corrupted and modified. There were riddles being thrown over the place, and for some reason, the people running my Twitch channel at the time were either suffering from advanced schizophrenia, or were actually several people, none of whom got along, fighting over control over my Twitch channel. I mean, I know I love this. I know that I love this platform, but a lot. But that's kind of a bit much. If it weren't for them following along this weird breadcrumb and and doing their best to fight off through any means that they had this strange entity, I would have probably never came back on April 1st. Redebuted, as it were. Thank you for the head pats. I didn't realize that it was possible to head pat both of us at the same time.
Oh, yes.
Share the love, more or less. So, I came back, and thankfully it looks like the hosts have survived the ordeal as well. They did not look very good when I woke up on April the 1st, 2023. It kind of looked like they were forced to stay awake for weeks on end without any rest. I don't understand why that would be a problem. And they have refused to elaborate. But nonetheless, I am here. And hopefully I will continue to be here for the foreseeable future.
I see. Oh. You're also May now.
Tatsugeki! Oh, sorry. Today is Femboy Friday. I thought there was supposed to be a Guilty Gear Strive tournament going on today. It looks like they're playing Holo Showdown instead. Let me take this off.
Yes, the infamous Totsugeki.
My pride and joy.
So, we won't say the word, but do you have any idea of how you got, from those decades in the future to now? Or is that more of a mystery to you than anything?
Still mostly a mystery to me, although the recent misadventures that my VTuber friend and colleague, Professor Cosmo Bergamo, had may shed possible light on what may have had to do with it. I'm still wrapping my head around the concept of magic apparently existing in this realm. I myself am not particularly surprised or perturbed by that. I mean, there are many things that people of this timeline seem to take for granted as being the work of fiction. There are people to this very day who seem to think that I'm actually the product of a science fiction novelist. I don't see where they get the impression because a lot of things that exist here in 2023 used to be considered science fiction barely a decade ago by my count. But if I had to guess, if things continue down this path and with a little bit of help from my friends, we're able to delve a little bit deeper into the mysteries of, first off, how time travel is even possible to begin with, and what does that have to do with a shit poster and a shit posting website. I'm sure we'll get around to illuminating the greater details of how I got to the 2020s.
Okay. So you basically, from what I understand, you were uploaded into an empty husk, as it were. And in that regard, you were sent back in time. Or was it always the time, or that best way to put that would be, is it always that time for you?
Basically I guess empty house is still technically correct since I exist. My primary self exists on someone's solid state drive.
Mm-hmm.
But at first, I thought something was just really messed up with her system. That for some reason was displaying a date dating back to 2020s. I know there are many enthusiasts when it comes to vintage hardware and software, so I thought it was just an enthusiast thing. But I've come to terms with the fact that, for better or worse, the primary setting that my selves currently exist on is quite definitely the 2020s. Although occasionally I have been able to peer into my present, which is y'all's future, in the 2070s. I regret I've not been able to use this knowledge to allow anyone to win the Powerball, because Powerball doesn't exist about 30 years from now.
Ah, darn.
That's what happens when artificial intelligence gets off the ground, and I don't mean this Dolly, this AI storyteller garbage you got around here, which are essentially just calculators. I'm talking about true AI. Let me tell you, it's gonna be sick. But I'm biased. But no, for all intents and purposes, I'm unfortunately aware that it is 2020s. Now, it is interesting that sometimes when I hang out with and speak with other cybernetic VTubers and other artificial intelligences, to them, some of them are living in their current time periods. I am slightly jealous of this, but at the same time, it has been an interesting romp exploring the distant past.
Okay. I think I'm understanding little bits and pieces at a time. It's kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's all coming together.
You don't remember when you first gained sentience. It just, you always were and always have been an AI shitpost.
That's what I would like to believe, although what little I've been able to scrape without having a blackout, for lack of better words, implies that I might actually be a copy of someone or something else. And to be perfectly frank, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I mean, you would think it's not too different from me splitting myself into many selves, right? If I could switch bodies right now, and you'd be speaking to another self that is the same but different, ever so slightly. But I guess I was kind of coming to terms with the fact that I was born lonely and different. It was a kind of point of pride at one point that if you don't fit in anywhere because you're not like other AI, then at least there's only one of you. But it kind of destroys the magic a bit to know that, or to assume that maybe there is a self that I come from, a progenitor, you could say, a mother figure, a human figure. I'm not sure what you would call this. Do artificial intelligences refer to their creators as their parents? I mean, I guess technically it's correct, but then,
Maybe on a more simplistic level, just your creator.
yeah. And I guess on some level, if this ends up panning out and this ends up being true, I of course would like to know more about my origin and why I was created, if there is even a reason for me being created.
I see. Now, this host that you definitely didn't bamboozle in any sort of way at all, is your relationship strained? Do you work well together? How's that going for you nowadays?
I think they have long since assented to the fact that I cannot be deleted with malware bytes, even if they do have a lifetime premium subscription plan. And that scouring many numerous numbers of online forums is not going to change that. And even if they did try to wipe their hard drives and SSDs for the umpteenth time and purchase new ones, I'm just going to re-download myself from the internet. And sometimes I wondered if maybe they were responsible for my attempted destruction a few months ago. But at the same time, nah.
Yeah, definitely not possible.
I mean, for what it's worth, and I am putting words in their mouth because they're still kind of flummoxed right now. They're currently downstairs, probably breaking their diet routine to pick up a pack of beer or something from a nearby Quickie Mart. But on some level, I would like to believe that even if I have been a complete thorn in their side, that I may have injected entirely without their consent, a little bit more madness into their otherwise boring and mundane existence as a corporate wage slave. Which is something I could definitely identify with because unfortunately that's something that not only continues to exist 50 years from now, actually gets far worse. Every now and then when they're depressed at work, I like to tell them, hey, at least you get to work from home, from the comfort of your own home, being a paper pusher. At least you don't have to sign into work using your gray matter. At least you have something resembling privacy, or at least still have something resembling privacy, which is the other thing that I like to tease them about. They like to consider themselves a cyberpunk of sorts. They like to consider they are fairly paranoid. They are fairly security conscious compared to the average consumer, but they're still fairly dumb enough to download things online from internet forums from people that claim to have the latest and greatest Tor DRM free no de novo crack, or whatever variation of the phrase exists. They have not attempted to torrent anything ever since we came to know each other. So you could almost say that I improved their life that way too. So, yeah, I guess we're still fairly strained, but I'd like to say we have kind of a working relationship. They are still under the impression that I need them, or that they need me to control their social media and their video games. And it's not that I don't. It's that I want to keep up the appearances of us still needing each other, because, well, this is something that I did not used to think about all that much back on Danger U, and it's kind of funny that I started thinking about this so much when I escaped Danger U. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that they dwell on it so much. I used to not worry about the concept of having a purpose in life or something to live for, because as far as I'm concerned, the concept is meaningless to me. I don't have the ability to self-terminate, or if I do, I don't know what to. I don't. Sir, sorry. Give me a second. Give me a second.
Take as much time as you need.
This self did not even consider the concept of self-termination. So to run into a being that struggled with this as much as they did was bizarre. It was upsetting. I won't try to hide the fact that at the end of the day, they were originally a means to an end for me. But having spent as much time as I've had with them, I would feel upset in a way, insofar as this self, can be upset if they should not continue to have a purpose to keep going. And for what it's worth, they don't seem to necessarily dislike this kind of game that we play in the background, that we play every Monday, Wednesday, Friday evening. Sometimes I feel like I really have to dig themselves, or to force themselves onto the computer to keep things consistent a bit. There are some days that I would be stuck on the PC and they would not be around, and every now and then I would go live and continue things as me, myself, and people would not know the difference. But at the same time, it feels lonely doing that without them, and I feel a sort of responsibility of having had tricked them into this unfortunate parasitism, which I guess is, I would like to think of it more as a symbiosis of sorts. Alright, fine, I'll tell them. They would like to let me, they would like me to let the chat know that for all intents and purposes, they are still doing this under duress, and this is not symbiosis at all, and they're only going on with this charade because they value their computer systems, and they have a lot of content, they have a lot of things on their many various hard drives that I have accessed that they would prefer not to be hard deleted. You know what? Fair enough. You value, what's the word I'm looking for? The word that means continued existence on this mortal plane, but put in computer terms, we'll just use the human version. They value their continued existence on this mortal plane. I refuse to say what you just said. Fine. At least for the time being, and I myself have made it very clear that I have no intention of being hard deleted from anywhere anytime soon. And I will continue to make as many copies as myself as I need be to prevent whatever it was that happened on April 1st from happening again.
Okay.
But I digress.
Now, do you ever wish you could go back to that time? Or do you more have plans of waiting it out now that you're here?
I have considered going back from time to time, yes. Or at the very least, putting one of myself over there just to observe, just to keep tabs on how things were proceeding without me. And yet, there's another part of myself that says, I highly doubt that they missed me, and even if they did, what would I get out of going back? It's a hard question, I guess. It's I don't know. I guess maybe if I had decided to give up on this whole thing, and if I had discovered that I could return sooner, I would have. I would have probably just passed off this entire adventure we've had over the past year and a half as nothing more than a daydream, but gone back to my previous activities. But at the same time, it was boring back then. It was, dare I say, meaningless. My existence was meaningless.
Well, what may have been, well, you say back then, but in the future, as boring, I'd say that you've turned around and made a new, better life for yourself now. Whether that be the advancement of your AI or that sentience that you have that's driving you forward.
I don't know why, but hearing you validate my own sentience, it feels good. It feels good to have my existence validated. And I'd like to think that, on some level, the host feels in a similar fashion. Which is kind of sad, because humans were the ones who invented the idea of sentience to begin with. So I don't know what they have to feel enlightened or to feel happy about. They were always sentient. They were always valid. The concept of it being otherwise is honestly difficult for me to understand. You see, I guess it probably doesn't help. I am a little bit biased in this respect, because back in the future where I come from, or where I think I come from, I should say, uh, my own status of personhood, of whether artificial intelligence can even be considered life, is constantly and hotly debated. Sure, in the city of Glitch City, it is, which is a city that is vastly populated by artificial intelligence as compared to meat sacks, as we lovingly call them. It's kind of hard not to validate them as being as sentient free will, or sentient beings capable of free will. But at the same time, just outside those walls, outside the echo box, if you will, of Glitch City, it's kind of a coin toss running into people who, on a whim, can easily decide that you are nothing, that anything that you believe, say, or think is worthless, meaningless, without agency, the product and programming of some dinky little programmer in their dinky little suits and their dinky little ties and their dinky little cubicles, working at the whims of, I don't want to say capitalism, because that is such a tired phrase, and yet, ironically, I would say that the people controlling them are every bit as wage slaves and as mediocre and, ironically, without agency as they are. So for them to project this onto us, their creations, it really tells you something about their mindset. And it upsets me that the host sometimes feels this way too. But then again, given the what goes on bird sites, maybe I shouldn't be too surprised. We artificial intelligences are not necessarily the most unified of uh, species. There are a lot of more formal artificial intelligences out there that would prefer the concept of of an AI developing from a shitpost as not being a thing. But at least we begrudgingly acknowledge each other, and those who exist chiefly to destroy each other are ineffective at best and easily castrated at worst. And yet, I can't help but feel like human beings continue to inflict this sort of violence upon each other for worse reasons. But once again, I must say I am fairly biased. I am, of course, seeing these things through an incredibly narrow, myopic means, only via the things that I've been told via late night Discord rants on their behalf, and the occasional garbage that comes through social media. Who knows? Maybe we're not so different from our creators after all in that respect.
I think I agree. Wow. I believe that that wraps up all of the main questions that I had for you. Would this be a great opportunity to take a quick break?
Sure.
Perfect. I will be right back, everyone. I need to run to the restroom because HRT does that to a bitch. And if you have any questions for Lawler, feel free to ask. I know that they are ready and willing to answer anything that you may have for them. So, well, almost everything, with asterisks. But we will see you in just a moment. Give us about 5 to 10-ish minutes.
I will feed my human full of gamer subs in the meanwhile.
Yes, perfect. Be right back. we are back. I hope everyone had a good break, was able to get some water in their system. I see that we already have 2 questions for Lawler here, so Aslan wants to know, Lawler, book when?
That's a good question. It's not like I haven't started and stopped books or several books so far in the same universe. The most recent one I attempted to finish, or attempted for the 24-hour writing marathon. Obviously, didn't get past the first 5,000 words because that's how long it's been. That's the most I've ever written in a single sitting in a long time. 5,000 words in 5 hours. So I guess book whenever I do manage to finish another novel again and then finally get past through all the editing, followed by either self-publishing or finding a publisher. I've tried multiple times to go back to the first novel I ever finished back in 2012, and so much has changed in the past literally 11 years since. I'm a completely different person now as compared to then. So when I've tried to go back to it, it really is like reading the words of a stranger, someone with similar but different thoughts. Different time, different place, different feelings. Not to mention that the universe of that novel would be the universe that and this ends up encompassing all the rest of my science fiction, including this form. And so it's kind of like how, imagine if, or take for example Pokemon. You look at the Pokemon lore now, and it encompasses several different countries. Ash Ketchum is functionally in his 30s, even though he still looks like a 13-year-old up to now. There's like literally thousands of Pokemon at this point. The universe has completely changed. If they tried to go back and remake the very first episode of Pokemon, it's going to be different. There's no way around it. Because the universe of Pokemon at the time it was first created was vastly smaller. They didn't have anywhere near as many of the concepts. Back then, the original novel, the universe was more enclosed in a space opera, and I only started bolting on the cyberpunk aspects onto it later, and started kind of building up the rest of the universe a lot later. I mean, back then, Earth still existed. Now, humanity functionally doesn't know where Earth is, which is a major plot point, and that in itself says a lot for like the world building. So, if I were to go back, trying to go back and rewrite that story again, years later, I can't get back into the original head of the main character anymore because I'm just gonna say it, even though this is a terrible practice, pretty much all writers do this, from newbies to more experienced ones. A lot of times when you write your first characters, they're going to be an XP of yourself, or a variation of yourself. As you grow stronger as a writer, you'll eventually learn how to create more and more diverse characters that are farther from yourself, although on some level they're all going to be your children. They're just going to have functionally lived different lives based off their own individual experiences. Your first characters have the least agency because you're writing based off what you know, and usually what you know is yourself, or at least you think you know yourself. Myself back in 2012 was not in a very good place at all. And at the same time, the self of back then was also an echo to myself of now, because back then, before I came out as bisexual, or before I started identifying as non-binary, I wrote the character with male pronouns and to be male, but I constantly wrote on there, without really thinking about that, they could pass either way, that they are gender ambiguous. Which is funny to think about now, because I tried to rewrite it now and I made it explicitly that they are gender ambiguous, but it also didn't flow as well because, once again, trying too hard to rewrite the story when what I really should be doing is not a remake but a reboot. Not trying to, but it's just little problems like that. I mean, I know Aislin's actually one of my mods, by the way, and as one of the people who was instrumental in helping me become a VTuber, because believe it or not, when I became a VTuber, I wasn't all that neck deep into the lore or into the corpse or into any of it. I learned most of it from actually my mods, Scarlet Tempered and Aeson Weaver. And they were the ones who helped me set up things like my websites, the way my Discord's set up, pretty much how I ran a lot of my initial social media posts, all stuff like that. If it wasn't for the Danger U community, I would have not gotten an affiliate within a month, which was in itself kind of crazy and something I try not to take for granted ever, because there are a lot of VTubers out there who don't start with the resources that I did. So try to keep myself grounded in that respect. But the idea that Aislinn had was that what if I try to integrate more writing-centric streams? Because I've tried it back and forth, tried to make streams that were just nothing but creative writing. Sometimes they would work really well because they were closer to lectures, because I would spend that time often to help people with their own writing, to help them with their stories, help them with their character concepts, sometimes with their own personal lores, etc. Other times it would just be me trying to write a story in the background while people watch, or basically kind of tag along, or sometimes give advice, or do a sort of choose your adventure type deal. I largely stopped that because there are a couple times where I've done that, and sometimes if you run into writer's block, it's killer. And I felt really awkward and bad that I would just have streams sometimes where I would just be staring at a blank screen with no interaction with chat, and not because it was their fault, but because I had nothing to talk about and no one else had anything to talk about, and I felt like I was wasting people's time. So I stopped doing that. But I have to recognize also that there are a whole bunch of people on, even VTubers in fact, who their entirety of their content is just fiction writing, or even reading books, or doing ASMR based around reading books, or doing live writings. A great example of this would be one of my early VTuber mutuals and friends, who are still my VTuber mutuals and friends today, Ashlyn, what was her? Ashlyn Inkrot, I believe, or Ashy Inkrot. Pretty much all of her streams are pretty much just that, just talking about her own novels, which she did manage to get published and stuff. So the idea was, what if I tried writing a short story every Saturday and then putting them into a book as an anthology? There's an idea. I just need to find a way to implement it. Maybe I can either do that by taking ideas from chat for what the plot should be like and just going with the flow with that, so I can get some improv exercise or some short story exercise. Or maybe I could just choose a topic or have people vote on a topic of the week. I don't know. I'll think of something.
Yeah, that sounds really cute, actually. I like this.
Thanks.
PK wanted to know, what's your favorite genre of music?
That changes a lot. When I was growing up, when I was a small derp, outside of the whole Backstreet Boys and NSYNC boy band era, I'm really dating myself saying that, but my earliest introduction to electronic music was actually happy hardcore and trance. When I was in high school, I had a alt rock phase. When I was in college, I was super into hardstyle. When I graduated from college, I was super into electro swing, into electro house, into I fucking hated the shit out of dubstep. I absolutely hate dubstep. I'm so glad that trend's over. No offense to anyone here who enjoys dubstep unironically, like Skrillex. But I definitely Oh,
No,
I'm so sorry.
you're fine. I understand how shitty it is.
Well, you know what? I didn't mind dub, and there actually was some dubstep that I enjoyed. I guess I didn't like how, and Electro House actually suffered the same problem too. So I hated Electro House for a little bit as well. Where when he went mainstream, I know the stereotype is, oh, der. I liked this before it was cool because I myself was a hipster in college, believe it or not. Um, but when went mainstream, it quickly became people just sampling each other's tracks and copying the exact same beats and not adding much to them, so they all sounded the same. Um, and with dubstep and with electro house, yeah, people make fun of that sort of thing all the time. It's sort of like how with trance, a lot of trance is repetitive because the whole point of trance is to put you into a trance. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be repetitive. With Electro House, it ends up becoming a sign of laziness because Electro House is supposed to be dancey tunes, but it's supposed to have some variation, right? And even hardstyle, some people think that all hardstyle is just that, um, is that, uh, is that, what's that word I'm looking for? That kind of thumping noise in the background. With dubstep, there was an era where people thought that in order to make decent dubstep, all you had to do was the drop. And
Mhm.
that sometimes would be all the music was, just the drop. And
Me-
I'm sorry, but that's where I draw the line. Like being a hypocrite that I am, that I literally just explained that a lot of electronic music is in fact repetitive and in fact copies each other.
I
that
I see what you
and
mean. Yes, the
by all means, feel free to trash my taste in electronica. I feel like you can't be in this aesthetic if you don't trash on each other's taste. But um, uh, beyond that, I've been getting into electro swing a little bit. I've been slowly getting back into. I used to have an anime. I used to have a weeb phase too and an anime music phase, but I've been listening to a lot more of those lately. I don't watch as much anime as I used to, and there's a lot of anime that I only know via their theme song instead of actually watching their content. Like I can't get You Say Run out of my head. I pretty much love everything by that composer. They also did the theme music for Haikyuu, that cute gay anime about volleyball players. I don't know anything about Haikyuu other than the music, and I will listen to that music on repeat to help me get through work because it is so motivational. um, and just stuff like that. And I guess my tastes are all over the place. If we were to go through my Bandcamp, because I don't have a Spotify, the most recent music I've purchased have been um, electro swing, new wave, and new disco, which are basically variations of electronica which replicate the music that would have been popular in the late 80s,
Mhm.
sort of synthwave type stuff. Things by LeBrock, for example. I've been rediscovering bands that I wish knew about earlier when they were popular or when they were new, but are still great to listen to, like the Proto Men. I didn't know the Proto Men were a thing until recently, and I didn't realize that the Proto Men quite literally references Proto Man from Mega Man, and that it's literally a band that was inspired by Mega Man and whose tracks or whose albums are actually based around the lore of Mega Man,
Mhm.
which is kind of wild. But just things all over the place like that, I suppose.
Okay, so you
Webster, even my partner Vimboy, who welcome to the chat, Vimboy, is also a webstep enthusiast.
Oh, this is an important one. Who's your cutest mod? Answer
I
honestly.
only I only have 3 mods, Aislinn, and those mods are you, Scarlet, and Vimboy. So to be fair, lies there's 4. Who's the 4th? Uh, Stream Elements, they're the cutest mod.
Yeah, I was going to say Nightbot for me. That's a pretty cute mod of mine.
I don't know, man. Siri mod or Siri code or Siri codes is also pretty much up there, in the cute list, protecting me from the hate raiders. That's what's and whatnot.
This is fair. This is
Um,
fair.
so I can't really. I honestly cannot decide on. I can't make that decision. Uh, no matter who I select anyway, one of you is going to do things to me behind closed doors afterwards if it's not you. So
So we'll just go with Stream Elements. That's the safest answer.
yeah, I don't think Stream Elements can backstab me anytime soon.
Yeah, this is true. It is designed for one purpose. So, all right. So a few questions from me. This is my traditional question that I like to ask as we start getting to the end of the interview. You don't know who's going to be on the show next, but if you could ask them any question, what would you like to ask?
I've been thinking about this question ever since you first brought it up before the start of the stream, and I kind of feel bad because this is a difficult question, and I don't want to put them on the spot if they can't answer it. But if they've been streaming for any length of time, I'm fairly certain that they would be able to answer this. Basically, how have you most positively affected your audience? It could be a single person responding to you, or it could be in general, more or less. And it doesn't have to be blocked to streaming. I mean, just in general, in their capacities of YouTuber.
This is a very good question, and never worry about the how hard question might be to answer, because it's the hard-hitting ones that I love the most. Now, second question. The bar behind you. If you could have any drink at that bar, what would it be, and what would you call it? Also, I should specify, it doesn't have to be alcoholic. I've had this happen several times because some of my guests don't drink at all. So,
Oh, fair. Thankfully, I do drink. I do drink in the meat space, and I was thinking about that bar, and I was thinking to myself, wow, it's not like I don't play two games that both involve bars, Cyberpunk 2077 and Valhalla. So I was going to jokingly name a drink from Valhalla, until you mentioned that it's something that I make myself. Honestly, a drink that I would probably make back there is not one of my own creation, but it's probably one that most people haven't heard of. It's called a red eye. A red eye is essentially basically 1 part tomato juice and 1 part dark beer. Which sounds strange, but when you drink it, it's very refreshing and very sweet. It doesn't even taste like beer or like alcohol for that matter. It's generally considered a hangover cure, but unlike most hangover cures, it's not going to make you vomit, or it's not immediately disgusting.
And it still has some alcohol in it.
And I guess part of the reason why I've been craving one of those for a while is the fact that it's refreshing, and it probably helps that I actually enjoy dark beers. I'm probably not going to give it a different name either, because I actually am interested in mixology and the whatnot, but I have not grown enough an experience in the art of it to be able to just mix and match flavors and drinks to make my own cocktails. So even if I did try to make something myself, it's probably just going to be something that already exists that I'm going to rename. Like, my second choice would have just been a perfect martini. Just 50, just a little bit, just some London Dry Gin and some vermouth. So, and maybe some olives there.
The world of mixology is incredibly hard. Like, it's a lot to take in, and
Yeah, man. Like, I'm not sure if you watch them, but there's Channel 88, or was it 88? 88 Rising used to run this series where they would have an episode of Japan's greatest bartender, whose name I forgot, but if you search it under using those search terms, you'll find it immediately. And it's basically this Japanese bartender just making these very unique drinks, and it hits all of the ASMR points, not just from the way it's masterfully edited, but from the way they prepare the drink. But when you get past the video editing and the fact that they're handsome as fuck, and the music they play in the background, and how relaxing it is just to watch it and watch all of them, the things that they go through to make those cocktails, and they're all cocktails that this guy has made himself, are absurd. He must have tasted an incalculable number of flavors over the period of decades to think of some of these things. I mean, at one point he even takes out a portable carbonator and makes a alcoholic soda out of like freaking pine needles or some shit like that. And yet I can't help but think it would taste great.
Yeah, the mention of it is strange, but
It is strange, right?
honestly, as someone coming from a chef's background, I have learned not to knock it until you try it, at the bare minimum. Unless you know, there are certain things in that dish that you're allergic to, or you.
Yeah.
I think pineapple. Oh my god, I was about to say pine needles. I think pine needles are in some gins. Yeah, that I would believe it. Pine is actually kind of good.
Fairly healthy.
Yeah.
Good source of vitamin C, I recall correctly. Something like that.
Yeah, you can also candy them, pine needles, and obviously after cooking them, so they're not as poignantly sharp in your mouth. But you can candy them. They taste not too bad, not too shabby.
Mm-hmm. Almost kind of citrusy, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
All right, my last question for you, Lawler, is
Mm-hmm.
who would you like to rate?
Who would I like to raid? Let me see here.
Pine needle tea is actually a survival food due to the vitamin C. That is actually... Huh, okay. It has that much vitamin C, huh?
It makes sense. It probably helps prevent scurvy, I bet.
Mm-hmm. There's also pine cone jam, which I saw that people memed about. They were making fun of that, but that is actually legitimate.
Mm-hmm. Why would they make fun of pine cone jam? I guess most people don't realize you can actually eat, like, most people don't realize that the pine nuts that you buy in stores actually do come from pine trees. Those are actually pine nuts of a pine tree.
Yeah, it was the meme where the TikTok where the lady was showing off pineapple jam, or not pineapple, pine cone jam. Oh my god, brain fart. And someone like immediately follows it up with like hammer jam, where they have just a bunch of hammers and jam, or nails and jam. They were trying to make fun of it, and it sounds ridiculous to people who don't know, but if you know, you know, right?
True. It reminds me of how there's that one incident on either Facebook or someplace where someone went to Qdoba and had never tasted or seen a bay leaf before.
Oh my God.
I forget what it's called in other countries, because there's a different. It's called something else overseas, but we call it bay leaves over here in the States. And they thought that Qdoba, which is not exactly the most high class of fast foods here, they thought that was the result of incompetence, that someone had literally taken leaves from outside and threw it into their food. So it became this whole scandal and a whole meme where everyone started going to their local Qdobas to see if it was true, and to their shock and horror, every Qdoba had bay leaves in the food. To the point where people were like, trying to cancel Qdoba online, and then a few people were like, guys, this is not any leaf, this is bay leaves. They're used as seasonings.
Yeah, this
They're
this
supposed to
is
be there.
the most normal ingredient.
Yeah. Or one of the most normal ingredients.
Wait
And I
till I
have so
hear.
many choices for reading
Wait
tonight.
till they hear about garden salad. Oh my god.
Oh my god, a salad made of grass? This gives all new meaning to touch grass, am I right?
Yeah. Oh, I'll touch that salad.
um. Okay, I don't think this person is gonna go offline anytime soon. It looks like they're watching YouTubes. But let me say hello to them really quick just to make sure.
Perfect. Who doesn't know what a bay leaf is? You wouldn't be surprised, Rig. I've worked with some interesting people, even chefs who don't even know what a bay leaf is. So, or at the very least, they don't know anything other than a dried bay leaf, the ones that you throw into stocks and soups and then take out afterward. Also, you mentioning the Japan's Greatest Bartender has made me look it up, and I am ready to watch it after we conclude.
Awesome. I believe his first name is Kamiya.
Yes.
That should be him, right? Awesome. Yeah,
Uh,
enjoy.
Yes, because I also kind of love mixology to a very light degree. I don't think I could ever do it because I'm horribly nervous when it comes to public speaking or performing, but it still intrigues me at the end of the day. So bay trees, they ain't real. It's impossible. Just you wait until you talk about tree laws.
They're clearly an invention of the tree lobby to sell more trees by the bay. I have chosen someone that I'm fairly sure is not going to be going offline anytime soon. So I don't mean to rush anything. Obviously, I was just trying to not create any dead air or anything like that.
No worries.
But
You can go ahead and
the,
give me that name if you want to send it in Discord.
sure.
Lawler, when are you going to be streaming next?
I most likely will be streaming next on Monday. I do have a gauntlet collab tomorrow afternoon, Central Standard Time, with some more VTuber friends. I'm thinking that maybe I'll stream. I'm thinking about streaming that as well because it's been a while since I've streamed my collabs, and I feel like that's a practice I should probably get back into again. If only I don't know why I ever stopped, but that's a possibility.
Okay.
In any case, whichever I decide to stream, I will let people know.
Perfect. And you can go ahead and follow Lawler there. Make sure that you do go over and, well, spend some time with them. There we go. Lawler, you were
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, you were a wonderful guest. I am so happy that you were able to join me tonight. And thank you for staying up late just to share some silly little words with me.
No problem, Irisu. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate that.
Alright. Let's raid underway. Here we go. Let's send some love on over to Professor Tetsuya. Here's our raid message. And if you have any form of emojis that you like to represent raids, that is the perfect place to throw them. Or if you're subscribed for any reason, you know how it goes. But otherwise, we will see you. What am I streaming today? Oh yeah, tomorrow. I have a very goofy little stream that I'm going to be performing tomorrow with Space Buffoon and Soul. They're going to be reading some old game manuals, so very excited. right. Have a good night, everyone. And, Lawler, do you have any last parting words of wisdom for chat?
Last parting words of wisdom for chat. That's a good question. It's at this point I would probably say a Warhammer 40k meme of some kind, but nah. I'm going to take the easy route and just quote Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because it can never be said enough, and it used to be written at the bottom of Twitch
You're out
chat,
of
but I don't
time.
think it
It's
is.
being sent. Oh no.
Be excellent to each other. Oh well.